7 signs God is quiet because he's working behind the scenes. There are moments in life when you're doing everything right. You're praying, you're waiting, you're trying to stay faithful, but you feel nothing. No answers, no movement, no direction. That silence from God can feel overwhelming. It can make you wonder if your prayers are even being heard. But often, God is quiet not because he's ignoring you, but because he's doing something deeper behind the scenes. The first sign is when a door closes unexpectedly. Maybe it was a relationship, a job, or an opportunity you thought was perfect. When it didn't work out, you were left confused and disappointed. But months later, you realized that door would have led to chaos, stress, or distraction. God's silence wasn't punishment, it was protection. Proverbs 16 verse 9 says a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. When God steps in, he doesn't always explain himself, but he always does what's best for you. The second sign is when you feel peace in the middle of confusion. Everything around you may still be unsettled. The outcome hasn't changed, but something inside you has. You're not as anxious. You're not trying to force things like you used to. That kind of peace doesn't come from answers, it comes from trust. Philippians 4 verse 7 says, "The peace of God will guard your heart and mind." When you feel peace, even though nothing is fixed, that's a clear sign God is working silently. The third sign is when people leave your life without explanation. It could be friends, a dating partner, or even family that starts to pull away. At first, you feel abandoned, but with time, you begin to see that God was clearing space. Sometimes people can't go where you're growing, and their presence was holding back what God wanted to do next. John 15 verse 2 says, "He prunes so you can bear more fruit." In quiet seasons, pruning feels like loss, but it's making room for the right connections. The fourth sign is when you experience delay after delay. You asked God for something months ago. You waited, and nothing happened. Then one day, it finally comes, and it's better than what you asked for. The delay wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Isaiah 60 verse 22 says, "When the time is right, the Lord will make it happen." That delay allowed everything to line up just right. The fifth sign is when you notice growth happening inside of you. You may not see big changes on the outside, but you're more patient, less reactive, and more grounded than you used to be. You're learning to trust instead of panic. That quiet character development is powerful. James 1 verse 4 tells us to let patience have its perfect work so we can be complete and mature. The sixth sign is when God isolates you to get your full attention. People don't understand what you're going through. You feel alone even when you're around others. But that space forces you to lean on Him more than ever. Psalm 46 verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." When everything gets quiet around you, it's often because God wants your heart to hear Him more clearly. The seventh sign is when your desire to control fades. You stop begging for outcomes and start trusting His will. You pray differently. You stop saying, "God, do this for me," and start saying, "God, if it's for me, I trust you." That shift is a sign of spiritual maturity. Romans 8 verse 28 reminds us that all things work together for good. When you're able to rest even without knowing all the answers, that's faith in action. So if you're in a quiet season, don't assume God is doing nothing. Don't give up just because you can't see what He's doing. His silence doesn't mean He's not listening. It means He's working, protecting, growing, preparing, and guiding you in ways that will make sense later. Trust the silence. That's where some of His greatest work begins.